What is up, harvesters? Welcome back to my subscribers, and if you're new here, welcome to Hobby Harvest. My name is Ken. So today I want to talk to you guys about 8 benefits that food plots have for your property, your deer herd, and you yourself. So let's get into it. Number 1 is that food plots provide increased nutrition for the wildlife in your area. This helps you to raise healthier, more sustainable wildlife, that it helps them get through the winters better, it helps grow bigger deer, all of those things. But that increased nutrition in those food plots is providing a food source for those deer that they don't have naturally, that is of a much higher quality than what they have naturally, and that really goes to help out your deer herd in many, many ways. And so number 2, one of those ways that it helps them is it does increase body mass and antler size in your bucks. But we need to keep that in check because a lot of guys have false expectations of what that means. So in that year that you put the food plot in, this is going to put less than 5 pounds on your deer. This is also going to give less than 1 inch of antler growth on your deer. But what this does is it really helps your deer over a longer period of time than just this shorter period. So there was a study done where they took bucks from 3 regions around the country. I'm not exactly familiar with what regions, but let's just say, for example, they took, say, some bucks from Texas, some bucks from out in the Rockies, and some bucks from up in the Midwest. And what they found was that the genetics of these 3 areas of deer were very different. I mean, we all know that those Midwest bucks are some really big bucks. Wisconsin has some of the biggest deer in the country. And we know that those Texas bucks, they might have really big racks, but their bodies are very small. So what they did was they took all of these bucks from these different regions and they put them into pens with food plots planted in them and fed them very high quality food for every single meal of the day. And what they were able to find might be a little shocking. What it did was, like I said, up front, they maybe grew about less than 5 pounds and they maybe put on maybe 1 inch less of antler growth. But over generations, so 3 generations later, the deer that were from all 3 regions, their offspring, their grandchildren, were almost identical. So what increasing the habitat does and increasing the food sources does is generationally increase the quality of your deer herd, more so than what you're going to get just that year out of those bucks that ate that food plot all year. So this is a reason to just keep at this, keep increasing that habitat, keep those food plots out there, and generationally you will see an increase in the body weight of your deer herd, but also the antler size of your deer herd. You will essentially be overcoming any bad genetics you have in your herd by providing them with a high quality food source so that they are maximizing the potential of whatever genetics they have. And so the third point I want to get into about food plots is that they really increase your fawn survival rate. So if we want those big bucks, we need them to survive when they're fawns. So how do we do that? Well, by providing these high quality food sources, those does will also be feeding on these food sources. That gets her to put on more body weight. That gives her a high quality food source to focus on as far into the winter as she can. And she's more likely to carry more fawns into the spring, so that when she does birth them, she's birthing twins instead of just a single fawn. The more we can get this to happen, the more fawns we're going to get to survive, and the more deer we are going to have on our property, the more bucks, the more small bucks we can raise into bigger bucks. And so just having these food plots really increases the probability that you're going to have a lot of deer of all age classes on your property, starting with those fawns. Now let's get into number 4. Now this one's probably the reason why all of us got into food plotting in the first place, and that is more predictable deer movement. So when you put in food plots become the central focus, number 1 attraction on your property that the deer herd will relate to on a daily basis. And so once you figure out when they're coming to those food plots, you can put in the rest of your habitat improvements. You can put in the rest of those stand locations to try to hunt them. But these food plots are the center focal point on your property that is going to control the deer movement, which makes them a lot easier to hunt. And that is why I think every single one of us put them in the first place. And then maybe it grew to like, well, I can actually manage a better deer herd with them and stuff as well. But that number 1 reason we all came in here was probably to put food plots in for that very first time, to put deer in front of us while we're sitting in the stand. And they, of course, are excellent at doing that. Which leads into number 5. So by putting all of these deer in front of us, we can now better manage our deer herd. So you can put cameras out on something like a mock scrape, just a deer trail, water hole, whatever in the woods. You're typically not going to get more than like 2 deer, 3 deer on that at a single time, depending on how the camera is set up and whatever. But on a food plot, you're going to get a much better idea of your overall herd size, how many deer you have in your area, where they're coming from, where they're leaving, and such. So having food plots is a really great way to actually manage your overall deer herd. Instead of just setting it up like on a deer trail and seeing which deer are passing through the area, you really get to see which deer are there every single day, where they're coming in from, where they're going out to. That's a good way to determine the difference between 2 doe family groups, because you'll see the one doe and fawn come in from this side every day, the other one comes in from this side every day. Those bucks, who knows, they wander around, they'll come in from wherever. But the bucks are, of course, easier to tell apart because of their headgear. So this really gives you an opportunity to like pick your harvest goals for your property, decide what you want to try to achieve year to year to year on your property. If you want to raise bigger bucks, if you think, hey, maybe we have too many does, we might have to pull some doe tags and balance our gender ratio a little bit better. But all things that are a lot more attainable by having food plots, so that you can witness and view those deer on those food plots with more of them together at the same time. And so number 6 brings me into soil quality. So soil quality is so important with any deer parcel. And the reason for this is, if you guys are brand new to this and you're looking to buy property before you've even developed it, when you're looking at property, the number one thing you need to look at is soil quality, because soil quality determines the quality of deer herd that is on that property more than anything else. So what food plots help us do is increase the soil quality on that food plot over years of crop rotations, of growing things, letting them decay back into the soil, working the soil again, and doing things like a summer cover crop of buckwheat. That's also known as green manure for a reason. So over the years, we are increasing the quality of soil in these food plots. And even though that may be a very small percentage of your overall property, because the quality of the soil was increased in that area on your property as a whole has increased soil quality, and you will be able to raise a bigger, larger, higher quality, healthier, more sustainable deer herd on your property because of that. So just one more reason why food plots are so awesome to put in on your property. And that gets me into number 7. So number 7 is food plots increase the biodiversity of your property. So I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that you guys do not have food plots naturally occurring on your land. So when you put in a food plot, it creates a new habitat on your property, and it increases that biodiversity of your property. So let's just take this the other way real quick. So when you're driving down the road and you look off to the side and there's a big pine forest there, they're all lined up, they're future telephone poles or 2x4s or whatever, and you look down the rows as you're going down the road, you see almost zero wildlife in those. Because those are a monoculture, they are absolutely not attractive to wildlife whatsoever. So what we want to try to establish on our property is as much diversity as we can on that property. And one of the ways to do that is to add a food plot. And this isn't just good for deer, this is good for every bird and mammal and insect and every other critter out there as well. They also like this diversity on your property. And animals tend to be in those edges between a transition in habitat. So on the edges of your food plot, you'll often find a lot of upland game birds, rabbits, things of that nature. But anytime there's that transition in habitat, anytime you can put like pockets of things on your property, you're going to get an increase in the overall wildlife on your property. And the biggest one of those are the deer. So if you're doing this perfectly, you're going to have deer, but if you're making this high enough quality for deer, you're gonna have all of those other smaller critters as well. Now the last one, number 8, this one is about you. So when we get out there and we work on those food plots, we really get to get out there, we get to get some exercise, we get to get our hands dirty, we get a sense of achievement and accomplishment of getting out there and getting something done. And then we get to see it grow for the entire season. We get to see the deer come into it. We get to see the plants grow. We get to earn that sort of long satisfaction of that we did something good for the wildlife in our area. We did something good to benefit ourselves in the fall for the hunt. and you get that like really good dopamine. It's not that cheap hit of dopamine by like swiping through TikTok or something. It's that really good, hey, I put my hard work into this, I got my hands dirty, I built something, and look what it did for me. Isn't that so awesome? And that is just an extra reason of why food plots are so awesome for your property, so awesome for you, and definitely awesome for your deer herd. So if you guys feel like you got some value out of this video, go ahead, hit that like button, leave me a comment down below, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you like this video, YouTube thinks you're going to like this one too. So go ahead and check that one out, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.